might seem cute, helpless, and charmingly innocent. Or they can look fierce, weird, and downright creepy. In the world of extreme animals, meet the babies.
Born into harsh families, extreme conditions, or under the gaze of scary predators, these youngsters all do it tough. But which will be crowned the extreme animal baby #1 toughest tot? Way up in the Arctic, where the winters are so cold the sea freezes over, life is hard fought. You'd expect the residents of a place like this to be as tough as they come. And in fact, this sea ice is the realm of the world's largest land carnivore. Over 3 meters tall on its hind legs and weighing more than 600 kilos. These powerful predators are truly fearsome. And yet, they couldn't be much cuter as cubs. No. When these polar bears were newborn, they were no bigger than guinea pigs. But they've spent the last 3 months holed up in a den, getting fat on their mother's milk. They'll be reliant on her until they're around 3 years old. The bond between mother and cubs is consequently strong and affectionate. But it's not all milk-drunk love. They must battle to survive from early on. The Arctic has one of the harshest climates on the planet, with temperatures plunging to -46 in winter. Polar bears are well equipped to deal with the extreme cold, with a double layer of fur, thick body fat, and small ears and tail to reduce heat loss. Even in temperatures as low as -37, their body temperature will remain at 37 degrees Celsius, the average for mammals. But despite these adaptations for their tough environment, in some areas, less than half the cubs will live through their first year. Mum has been fasting since just after she became pregnant 8 months ago. If she and her cubs are to survive, she must make a kill soon so they can all eat. A ringed seal pup is hidden from sight under the snow. But Mum's sensitive nose can detect the fat-encased, energy-rich prey from just over a kilometre away. Although she's hefty, she must be stealthy. Too late. The seal pup doesn't hang around to see who's at the door, and dinner makes the speedy exit. Exhausted and close to starvation, they'll die here unless they eat soon. But it looks like Mum's caught a whiff of hope. Out on the sea ice, a large male has scavenged a whale carcass. Mum's not hanging around for a dinner invite, and her cubs have little choice but to follow her through the icy water. This is a risky operation. The male could be twice Mum's size. If he attacks, there may be little she can do to stop him killing her cubs. The family sticks close together as they approach to a respectful distance. There's enough here for everyone, if they play their cards right. Once the big male has eaten his fill, he's not averse to sharing. And the kids follow Mum as she cautiously moves in for the leftovers. And what a great family meal it is too. Supersized and absolutely blubbery. Thanks, Mum. For playing it ice cool in one of nature's most inhospitable kindergartens, polar bear cubs are number 10 on the countdown of toughest tots. Grazing on grasslands across almost the entire length and breadth of Africa is an animal so tall its head glides between the treetops. Between 4 and 6 meters from toes to nose, the giraffe is the tallest mammal on the planet. This one is in the final stages of labor. First the calf's front legs, and then the head emerge. It looks like trying to open an umbrella inside the house, and then trying to back out the front door. And while her height might provide a womb with a view, there's one substantial drawback for a calf. There's only one way down. The quick way. High diving around 1.5 meters to the ground is undoubtedly a tough introduction to the world. But within roughly half an hour, newborn giraffes are on their feet. And incredibly, within around 10 hours, they can run with their mothers. There's good reason giraffes are born so well developed. Their neighbors aren't all friendly. During the first few months of life, up to 3/4 of baby giraffes will fall prey to hyenas or lions. But not without a fight. The longest legs on land aren't just for show. Strong enough to support up to 3.5 tons, they pack enormous power, making giraffes one of the few prey animals capable of turning the tables on one of Africa's top predators. A hungry pride has a young calf in their sights, but Mum's lofty vantage point means they can't sneak up unseen. Keeping her calf close, the protective parent aims powerful kicks at any lion that approaches. If one of these connects, it could shatter bones. So the lions are wary. Before long, mother and calf are surrounded. Their only hope now is to make a break for it. Grown giraffes can run at speeds of over 50 kilometers an hour. And this mum and kid leave the pride in the dust. For a high-diving start into a predator's paradise, giraffe calves place 9th on the countdown of tough tots. From North Africa to the Middle East lives a shy little creature which spends its whole life in labyrinthine underground burrows. Naked mole rat is somewhat of a misnomer. Naked porcupine sausage would be closer to the mark. Not only is it more closely related to the porcupine than either moles or rats, but let's face it, if it weren't for the buck teeth, you could slap one of these in a finger roll and call it a hot dog. Yep, naked mole rats have a face only a mother could love. But it turns out, motherly love is in rather short supply. Naked mole rats are one of only 2 mammals which are eusocial. Several generations live together in ant-like colonies of up to 300 individuals. The colony is ruled over by a single queen, who can give birth to over 100 new little workers a year. So it's always a scrap for milk. And it's little wonder none of her offspring are Mama's special little sausage for long. Fortunately, naked mole rats have thick skin, or at least can suppress feelings of pain through it. Particularly handy for the smallest players at the bottom of a writhing communal scrum. These seemingly delicate babies can also survive in an environment so low in oxygen, it would kill a human. Tough tots indeed. And that's not the limit of the naked mole rat's special skills. They can run backwards as fast as they can run forwards. Well, okay, it's less a special skill than a little bit weird. And to get the full nutritional value out of the roots and tubers, which are their only food, mole rats eat them twice. Just think about that for a second. Oh my goodness. Oh, yuck. They eat their own... yeah. If that wasn't grubby enough, because they're virtually blind, mole rats identify members of their group by smell. How do you all get to smell the same? Easy. Roll in each other's... So, for being both the feels-no-pain tough kid who no one wants to mess with and the weird smelly kid that no one wants to sit next to, naked mole rat babies scramble their way to number 8. Feuding fathers, nasty nannies, and persistent predators. It's all coming up in the countdown of extreme animal babies' toughest tots. So far, we've seen brave little bears, high-diving giraffes, and a whole pile of ugly. Next up, brace yourselves. The Tough Tots countdown is about to get heavy. On the grasslands of the tropical island of Sri Lanka, herds of elephants roam. The largest of the Asian elephant subspecies, calves are born weighing in at around 100 kilos. They're still small enough to get under mum's feet, but big enough to make these tots too tough a meal for most predators. And even a leopard doesn't stand much of a chance against the protective wall of massive aunties. But how tough are they really? Well, they can walk within hours of birth, so can soon keep up with the herd, which must move if it's to survive. Adult elephants can eat over 130 kilos of food and need to drink between 100 and 200 liters of water per day. To satisfy these massive appetites, the herd migrates between the wet and dry seasons each year. Waterholes attract all sorts of thirsty animals, and that attracts predators. Crocs have been known to attack elephants, but do these youngsters look bothered? Nope, because they're not going anywhere until the herd's big matriarch has cleared out the riffraff. The danger gone, the calves head in for a drink. But the crocodile has spoiled the pool party. The remains of its last kill contaminate the water. Dead buffalo isn't a garnish that appeals to this matriarch, so she leads the herd in search of a higher class hangout. The next watering hole is much more appetizing. And the whole herd heads in to quench their thirst. The adults drink using their trunk, but with over 100,000 muscles and ligaments, it takes calves months to master its control, and they drink with their mouths. Not so much tough, as a little uncouth. The water also provides a chance to cool off, and gives the youngsters an opportunity to play. All too soon, with dusk approaching, it's time to move on. But not everyone's keen to get out of the water. These 3 kids have been having far too much fun to want to stop now. With the whole herd waiting, Mum chivies them along. And the trio makes a reluctant exit. They say an elephant never forgets, but it looks like this little one has a selective memory when it comes to Mum's instructions. With the herd already heading off, Junior should be packing her trunk, not chucking a tanty. Oh, come on! Just 5 more minutes. Eventually, she's out. And then she's not. But the threat of being left behind usually works for most toddlers. And there's always tomorrow. There's nothing tough about hanging back behind the heavies or backsliding on mum. So, no ranking for elephant calves. But they're not the only elephantine youngsters vying for a spot on the countdown. They live at the beach with food on tap. And nothing on their schedule but sunbathing. So what's a southern elephant seal pup got to scream about? Well, while mum's a doting parent, dad's got a real mean streak. He wasn't always like this. Back when Dad first met Mum, he was all, "Hey, sugar thighs." And she was like, "Who, me?" "Yeah, you. What's jiggling?" Dad always had yesterday's fish on his breath, but Mum didn't care. She was in love. And for a while, everything was rosy and oh, so romantic. Then one day, Mum was down at the pool, just minding her own, when she noticed she was getting the hairy eyeball. Were these females just jealous because she was so beautiful? Nope, it was because they were Dad's girlfriends too. And they were ugly. It turned out Dad didn't really care for looks. He'd chase just about any female at the beach and attempt to impregnate her. And in Mum's case, he succeeded. For the next few weeks, she and the pup bonded. The youngster got fat on her milk. Whoa! It's like a huge double chin grew a cute little face. And Dad? Well, Dad was off with one of his other girlfriends and left the pair well alone. Or at least that is, until Mum got a new boyfriend. And then, it was on. Around 4 tons of wobbling angry, you know when Daddy's coming for you. And you'd better not get in his way. This steamroller won't even notice if he offs the offspring, in his haste to get his teeth stuck into Romeo. While the battle rages, this traumatized pup makes it back to the safety of Mum's side. But with bloody heavyweight scraps kicking off up and down the beach, inevitably, there's collateral damage. And the birds feast on the squashed remains of pups unlucky enough to have crossed big males on the warpath. Life might be a beach for elephant seal pups, but Dad's a total... They're in at number 7 on the countdown of tough tots. From Antarctic shores to the mountains of South America, the next stop is the Andes. Oh, ducklings! And what could be cuter than the sight of mother duck taking her offspring for their first ever swim? Well, hold the melting moment, because these fluffy little fiends are Torrent ducklings. Hatched in the mountains just an hour ago, there's no local pond for their inaugural swimming lesson. Just this raging river. It's enough to make a torrent duckling turn chicken. But with Dad leading the way, there's no identity crisis for these two. Torrent ducks are sleekly built and have powerful legs and tails ideally adapted for even the mightiest rapids. And their offspring can keep up almost immediately. This duckling is navigating the river using submerged rocks to shelter from the turbulence. But if the current proves too much and it's washed downstream, its parents will stage a rescue. And right now, Dad's lost sight of his ward. These angry waters are thought to be the biggest killer of torrent ducklings, and if he doesn't act fast, the consequences could be fatal. But torrent ducks can dive and swim underwater against the current for up to a minute in search of food. And this youngster had just ducked out for a bite to eat. For fearlessly taking on the whitewater of the Andes at such a tender age, torrent ducklings power into 6th place on the countdown of toughest tots. They're bright and brave, but are their offspring really badass? Find out as we continue the countdown. Staunch litters, heavy hitters, and filthy naked mole rats. These tots just keep getting tougher as the countdown continues. Frogs are incredibly successful amphibians. There are more than 5,000 known species of frog and toad, and they can be found in most habitats across the globe. But most species are less tough customers than tasty morsels. So blending into the background is a sensible survival strategy. In South America, there's one family of frogs which is far from a wallflower. The well over 100 known species of poison dart frog come in all the colors of the carnival. These frogs might only be the size of your thumbnail, but they're tough little characters. In full view of the rest of the rainforest, they brazenly announce their presence, fight with each other, and even stand up to much larger, scary predators. It's the wolf spider, which leaves with its tail between its legs. It learned the hard way poison dart frogs can be deadly poisonous. Thanks to a diet rich in toxic insects, their bodies are covered in a neurotoxin secretion, and their brightly colored skin is a warning of the fact. With only one known predator, it's little wonder poison dart frogs are true rainforest roughnecks. But what of their offspring? Are they as tough as their tiny parents? Well, unlike most frogs, the strawberry poison dart frog lays relatively few eggs, only up to around 5. Both parents are also highly attentive, frequently returning to check on their brood before they hatch. And when the tadpoles do finally emerge, their doting mother becomes a taxi service. The babes are deposited in tiny, sheltered pools, like this one at the base of a bromeliad plant. This exclusive nursery may be safe, but there's not much to sustain a hungry tadpole. So every couple of days, Mum returns to deliver poolside service. An unfertilized egg, which her offspring greedily gobbles up. Until 6 weeks later, Junior is almost fully developed. This is one unbelievably spoilt froglet. All this mollycoddling, it's enough to make a grown toad wanna... Oh, I think he's actually gonna... hurl. And somewhat unexpectedly, he's barfed up a baby. Darwin's toads are another amphibian which enjoys a cosseted start to life. Dad carries the tadpoles around in his vocal sac for around 6 weeks, at which point he spews them from his mouth fully grown. So, thanks to overzealous parenting, there's no place in the countdown for poison dart frogs or Darwin's toads. But there is one frog which does produce genuinely tough tarts. Meet the reticulated glass frog, named due to the transparency of its skin. Yep, no surprise tadpoles stashed in this one. The reticulated glass frog might appear fragile, but Dad is remarkably resilient when it comes to caring for his offspring. He'll guard the clutch of eggs through the day and into the night, keeping them hydrated by pressing his body against them. It's during the day, though, that his defense must be most staunch. Rainforest wasps are among the most avid predators of glass frog eggs. And one of these aggressive carnivores has found the egg clutch. It's nearly as long as the frog and carries a venomous sting. But Dad's not scared off. Because in a twist on the fairy tale, when the wasp goes in for a kiss, it's not a prince he turns into, but a ninja. Dad's heroics are impressive, but while he's brawling with one wasp, another has got to the eggs. The tadpoles within face certain death. But then, something incredible happens. The tadpoles begin escape hatching. Under normal circumstances, they take around 2 weeks to hatch. But having sensed they're under attack, some are bailing early. It's a dangerous new world for this tadpole, one it wasn't supposed to explore just yet. But staying put hasn't worked out too well for its siblings. So taking the plunge now is a risk which might just save its life. Soft? Spoiled? Not this tadpole. It's a survivor. For staging such a daring escape, glass frog tadpoles high dive their way into 5th place on the countdown. Next, going it solo or loving mum. What makes for the toughest tot? All of family life is here as we count down to the number 1 toughest kid on the block. Large stretches of Africa and Asia are home to the next baby bruiser. Leopards are amongst the most wide-ranging and adaptable of big cats. These streamlined killing machines aren't fussy about their food. Most things with a pulse will do. But this stealthy predator starts life as nothing but a pussycat. Tree climbing is a way of life. It gives Mum a safe vantage point to keep an eye on things. And a larder out of reach of other would-be bandits. Mum makes treetop living look easy. But the dismount takes a little practice. Leopard cubs stick with Mum for up to 1.5 years while they learn to hunt and improve their climbing skills. In India, bashing a passing cobra under Mum's watchful eye is one way to tune up your reflexes. If it lands a bite, the snake is venomous enough to take down an elephant. But the leopard kids have to learn to survive in a tough world. And dodging a king cobra is just part of their nursery education. Tackling a civet leaves a nasty taste in the mouth. This cub's just discovered the small mammal emits a nauseating secretion when it's upset. And this one's not happy. The African plains have their own dangers, and some playmates are probably better avoided. You can't fault this cub for trying, but he's really not getting the point. As with most animals, it's getting through the first few months of life that's the big challenge. Very young cubs have few defenses, and those gooey eyes aren't going to cut it with anyone but Mum. Keeping the cubs stashed out of sight is Mum's only option when she's off hunting. A narrow den protects against marauding hyenas or lions. But there's one deadly neighbor that can silently slip into a cub-sized crevice. When Mum returns, there's no sign of Junior. But the python's efforts to play the innocent are thwarted by a large, cub-shaped bulge. Mum isn't going to take that lying down. It seems she knows her own cub anywhere, even in a snakeskin overcoat. And her persistence pays off. The python loses its lunch and returns the cub. A little worse for wear. Several hours in the snake's gastric juices have done nothing for its complexion. And despite Mum's heroic efforts, this is one little leopard that just wasn't tough enough. So despite facing up to prickly playmates, leopard cubs don't make a spot on the Tough Tots countdown. Found throughout South and Southeastern Asia, the water monitor is the world's second largest monitor lizard, growing up to 3 meters long. Females lay a lot of eggs, up to 40 a year. But digging a burrow is the limit of a mother's maternal duties. And she doesn't hang around to incubate them. Months later, when the eggs should be ready to hatch, only one does. The others have succumbed to mold. So right from the start of life, the baby lizard must go it alone. And at only 30 centimeters long, it emerges into a very threatening environment indeed. Monitor lizards are extreme carnivores, which means they'll kill anything they believe they can eat, including smaller monitor lizards. Life lesson 1 for this tough tot: keep your head down. But staying out of sight might not be enough. Monitor lizards have an incredibly strong sense of smell, lapping odors into their mouth. But it's the stench of the rotten eggs which have tickled this big adult's tongue. And the youngster makes a dash for it. Having escaped the cannibalistic elder, the little water monitor takes his first ever dip. As his name suggests, he'll spend much of his life close to or in the water. Although that might not be too long. Life lesson number 2, keep an eye on the sky. Although the lizard is an able swimmer, he's not about to outpace a sea eagle. But it's fish on the menu today. All this running for your young life is hungry work. So what's a hatchling water monitor to eat? Yum. Ants, and lots of them. They're a bite-sized meal for some small lizards, like extra crunchy sushi. But uh-oh, life lesson number 3. This particular species is served up with an eyeful of wasabi. When threatened, weaver ants spray formic acid. And the lizard, eyes smarting, beats a hasty retreat. With dusk approaching, it's time to seek refuge from the dangers lurking in the forest and the cool of the night. Finally safe, the young lizard should perhaps reflect on all his day has taught him. Because tomorrow, he's going to have to run the gauntlet of life all over again. They're extreme carnivores once fully grown, but when they're little, it seems water monitors are just extremely tasty. But despite being on the menu of just about every predator, they're only number 4 on the countdown. Because we're soon to meet a tot so tough, it leaves the rest looking like crybabies. From the cold of the Arctic to the heat of the South American rainforest, we've seen tough tots struggling for survival in all sorts of environments. Throughout the world's oceans, capable of changing the color and texture of their skin within seconds, cuttlefish are an all-in-one deep-sea disco. A flashy display can be used to attract a mate, and this seemingly preternatural ability is also used for camouflage when cuttlefish are hunting, or to hide when they're threatened. But there is a species of cuttlefish for which these rippling, vivid displays fulfill an entirely different function. And it's tiny. From birth, the flamboyant cuttlefish lives up to its name, emerging from its egg sac in pulsating technicolor. Most newborns prefer a low-key approach, but this kid screams, "Look at me," from the get-go. At just over a centimeter long, they're immediately able to hunt, stalking their prey before shooting out feeding tentacles to ensnare it. Even when fully grown, the flamboyant cuttlefish will only measure a few centimeters long, making it one of the smallest species of cuttlefish. Yet they are the only species known to eschew swimming in favor of strolling across the ocean floor. And while most cuttlefish would hide or dart away when threatened, the flamboyant stands its ground, pulsing its fins and flashing hypnotically. So how come, right from infancy, this minuscule mollusk talks the talk and walks the walk? Well, its colorful display advertises the fact it's highly poisonous, containing a toxin as lethal as the famously deadly blue-ringed octopus. So predators can forget about a taste test. These little chaps are a mouthful of death. For strutting its stuff rather than skedaddling, flamboyant cuttlefish babies are the third-place tough tot. Next up, they're an evolutionary oddity. But are these babies just freaks or a force to be reckoned with? On islands down at the bottom of the South Pacific lives a family of birds which in many ways evolved to be more akin to a mammal. Native only to New Zealand, Kiwis are flightless, build burrows rather than nests, have thick fur-like plumage, and produce extraordinarily well-developed young. Key to this is the bird's enormous egg. This mother-to-be is taking the load off her stretched belly in a pool of water. Her egg takes up around 20% of her body and is one of the largest of any bird in proportion to body size. In the final few days before she lays, the female must fast as the egg is so large it leaves no room for food. Once brown kiwi mothers have laid, that's the end of their involvement. Incubation duties are handed over to Dad. He must sit on top of the egg, keeping it warm for up to 80 days, more than double the norm for a bird his size. The egg also has around twice the normal proportion of yolk to sustain the chick as it grows. Well fed and taking an extended nap inside an egg the size of a small caravan, so far, the young Kiwi story is less about tough tots than poor old parents. But sometimes, egg life isn't all it's cracked up to be. Dad's got to eat, and every 24 hours leaves the egg, which cools down to temperatures which would harm most bird embryos. Not the plucky Kiwi. Frostbite holds no fears for this little battler, and the chick evades damage from the cold. Breaking out of the egg is also a struggle. Most birds are equipped with an egg tooth to pip the shell, but not the Kiwi, which must kick and peck its way out. It's a scrap that can take the little bird up to 3 days. The chick's giant potbelly is an egg sac containing the remainder of the huge yolk, giving the youngster her own inbuilt school lunch for her first 10 days of life. So she's no longer a burden to her parents, which never have to feed her. And she's already so well developed, she'll soon venture outside and begin foraging for herself. Which is when life really gets tough. Kiwis evolved in an environment free from the threats of predatory mammals, making them easy prey for the entourage of deadly immigrants following in the wake of migrating humans. These efficient predators make for dim prospects for Kiwi chicks. 95% won't make it through their first 6 months. And one of the deadliest has got the scent of the young Kiwi. Stoats kill over 3,000 brown Kiwi chicks every year. But this baby bird isn't entirely defenseless. She has a powerful kick and sharp claws. And that makes for one tough tot. So, Kiwi chicks kung fu kick their way into the number 2 spot on the countdown. Now, get ready to meet the toughest tot on the block. It's been scary. It's been hairy. Cripes, it's even been hairless. In at number 10. Cute, covered in fluff and undeniably tough, it's polar bear cubs. Putting their considerable necks on the line in 9th place, it's baby giraffes. Rude, nude, double eaters of food, naked mole rats are in 8th spot. In 7th place, with massive daddy issues, it's elephant seal pups. In at 6 and going with the flow are Torrent ducklings. Nobody's scrambled eggs. Glass tadpoles high dive into number 5. And there's nothing wet about water monitors. They're in at 4. In all the colours of the rainbow and deadly poisonous, flamboyant cuttlefish are in at 3rd place. Flightless, not feckless, hard-kicking Kiwi chicks, they're in 2nd spot. So finally, we've reached the top spot of the extreme animal countdown of tough tots. Native to Southern Asia, Hanuman langurs can live in troops with over 100 members. This infant has been born into an all-female troop, presided over by a single dominant male, his dad. There's plenty of other youngsters for him to play with. But they better keep it down around Dad. He's not a big fan of his boisterous offspring and has nothing to do with raising them. This responsibility is shared by all the females of the group, who regularly pass younger infants between them. You might think with so many to care for them, the little monkey's early life would be a charmed existence. And some females are gentle and attentive nurses who do a good job looking after borrowed babies. But in truth, Hanuman langur infants have a Jekyll and Hyde upbringing. Remember that auntie who was always a bit rough when she brushed your hair, or held your hand way too tightly when you crossed the road? She's got nothing on this nasty nanny. Interestingly, it's the experienced mothers who take babysitting far too literally. There's no comeback for abusive females, and the perpetrators repeatedly mishandle infants. Although injury is rare. But this tiny tot appears to have been smothered, his body limp. His mother dashes over and attempts to revive him. He's alive. And a comforting drink of milk helps make it better. Wicked stepmothers make life tough, but there's an even greater threat to this young Hanuman's survival. Poor dental hygiene isn't all that's scary about this guy. He and his band of bachelors have come to pick a fight because Dad's got something they all want. And it's not his winning grin. The bachelors are challenging for control of his harem. If they succeed in chasing Dad off, the dominant bachelor will take his place and drive out all of the troop's juvenile males. Or worse, massacre all the infants. For the youngster's sake, Dad must be strong. He puts on a grand display of his physical prowess to demonstrate his dominance. The bachelors stand firm, but as Dad gets closer, they scarper. Go, Daddy! With the bachelors beating a retreat and the threat of violence gone, the troop can get back to the peace and tranquility of everyday family life. Murderous males and abusive females put baby Hanuman langurs through the ringer. No wonder he looks depressed. But here's a reason to be cheerful. You're in at number 1 on the Extreme Animal Baby Toughest Tots Countdown. The langur's incredibly long tail has many uses, and not just for its owner. When baby's getting bored, there's nothing like having your own inbuilt distraction.